opened the safe and felt the floor drop out from under me. Empty. Completely empty. My hands trembled as I sifted through the inside again and again, as if the money might magically appear. $50,000. 5 years of my life. Gone. My heart was pounding so hard. I could hear every beat thumping in my ears. I could not breathe. I could not think. I just kept repeating one word in my mind. Impossible. I ran to the living room, the empty safe in my hands. Lisa was sitting on my sofa, scrolling through her phone with that indifference that had recently become her permanent expression. She did not even look up when I came in. I confronted her, my voice breaking, showing her the open box. She sighed, as if I were bothering her with something trivial. She set her phone aside and looked at me with those cold eyes I no longer recognized as my daughter's. "Oh, that," she said with a horrifying calm. I gave the money to Vincent. He needed a new car. I froze. The words were not registering. I had to have misheard. It had to be a cruel joke. But she continued, unfazed. He bought a beautiful sports car. It was about time he had something decent to drive to work. I felt like I was choking. My knees buckled, and I had to lean against the wall to keep from falling. "Lisa," I whispered, "that was my money, my trip, my savings for 5 years." She stood up from the sofa abruptly, irritated. "Your trip? Your trip to Japan?" She laughed, a dry, humorless laugh. "Mom, please. You're 73 years old. You're too old to be running around the world as a tourist. It's a silly idea. A ridiculous fantasy." Every word was a stab. My own daughter, the child I had carried, whom I had raised alone after her father died, was taking away the only thing I had left. "Give it back," I managed to say, though my voice sounded weak, broken. "Give me my money back right now." Lisa shook her head, crossing her arms. "I cannot. It's already spent. Vincent signed the papers for the car yesterday. Besides, that money was just wasting away here. At least now it has a real, practical use. You do not need to travel. You need to accept your age and stop dreaming like a teenager." I staggered backward. It could not be real. This could not be happening. The memories hit me all at once. 5 years. 5 years of getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to sew wedding dresses in my small workshop. 5 years of turning down invitations, living on canned soup and toast to save every penny, wearing the same worn-out clothes, walking instead of taking the bus. All for Japan. To see the cherry blossoms in Kyoto, to walk among the ancient temples, to keep the promise I made to my late husband that one day I would see the country he loved so much in his books. When Arthur died 6 years ago, I was left alone in this house that was too big and too quiet. The first few months, I cried so much I thought I would dry up from the inside. Lisa barely came to visit. She was too busy with her life, with Vincent, with her job. One night, while sifting through Arthur's things, I found an envelope. Inside were pictures of Japan he had cut out of old National Geographic magazines for years. On the back of one, in his shaky handwriting, it said, "Eleanor, when I'm gone, promise me you'll go. Go for both of us." I cried all night, clutching that picture. And the next day, I made my decision. I would go. I would fulfill his last wish. I started saving with a determination I did not know I still had. I took every sewing job that came my way. I hemmed pants, embroidered tablecloths, and made prom dresses. My fingers bled more than once from so much sewing. My eyes grew tired under the lamplight late into the night. But every dollar bill I put in that safe was one step closer to Arthur, one step closer to my dream. I sold jewelry I no longer wore. I stopped buying unnecessary things. My life was reduced to the essentials: work, save, dream. I told Lisa about my plan 3 years ago. I hoped she would be happy for me, that she would understand how important it was, but she frowned and told me it was a waste. "You should keep that money for emergencies, Mom. For your health. You're older, you never know what could happen." I tried to explain that this was my emergency, an emergency for my soul, that I needed something to live for, but she did not listen. From then on, every time I mentioned Japan, she changed the subject or looked at me with pity. 2 months ago, I reached exactly $50,000. I counted every bill with tears in my eyes. I had done it. Against all odds, this old seamstress had done it. I was going to book the trip in 2 weeks, just in time for the cherry blossom season. It would be in the spring, just as Arthur always wanted. I felt more alive than I had in years. I had a reason to wake up every morning. I had a future, even if everyone said that at my age, the future did not matter anymore. And now, standing in front of my daughter, the empty safe in my hands, that future was vanishing like smoke. Lisa looked at me without a shred of remorse. Besides, Mom, think about it. Were you really going to travel alone to the other side of the world? With your bad knee? Without speaking Japanese? It's dangerous. I did this for your own good. For my own good. The cruelest words that exist when used to justify a betrayal. I looked into her eyes, searching for my little girl, the one who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mom in the world. But I only found a stranger. "How did you get into the safe?" I asked, my voice trembling. She hesitated for a second. "I found the key. It was in your dresser." "That's a lie. I wear that key on a chain around my neck, under my blouse. I never take it off." My eyes widened as I realized. "You went to the bank. You took the money from my account." Lisa looked away, uncomfortable for the first time. "I had to. You gave me no choice. Always so stubborn with your impossible trip. How could you do this to me?" My voice broke completely. Tears began to roll down my cheeks uncontrollably. "I am your mother, Lisa. I gave you everything. I sacrificed everything for you," she snorted, looking at me like I was a spoiled child throwing a tantrum. "Exactly. Mom, you've sacrificed enough. You've done your part. Now it's time for you to rest, to stay home quietly, not go blowing fortunes on absurd trips." She pointed her finger at me, accusingly. $50,000 thrown in the trash when you might need that money for medicine, for the doctor, for real things. I could not believe what I was hearing. Every word came out of her mouth so naturally, as if she truly believed she was doing me a favor. "Real things?" I repeated, almost voiceless. "And my dreams are not real? My happiness does not count?" Lisa sighed with exasperation, as if explaining something obvious to someone very foolish. "At your age, Mom, happiness is about being calm, without complications. You do not need strong emotions or adventures. That's for young people." She looked me up and down with contempt. "Besides, let's be honest. You, walking around Tokyo with that cane? It would be ridiculous." Something inside me broke in that moment. It was not just the betrayal of the money. It was seeing myself reflected in her eyes as a burden, as someone useless whose life no longer had value. I wiped my tears away with anger. "Call Vincent right now. Tell him to return the car, to cancel the sale." Lisa crossed her arms, defiant. "I am not doing that. I already told you, the money is spent. The contract is signed. It's too late." I stared at her, trying to find even a hint of the girl she used to be. "Then I'll go find him myself." "Try it," she said with a mocking smile. "Vincent will not see you, and even if he does, what are you going to say? That his mother-in-law is crazy because he spent her own money on something sensible?" She stepped closer to me, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "No one will believe you, Mom. They'll all think you're ill, confused. A bitter old woman who cannot accept that her daughter made a smart decision." Her words were pure poison. I backed away from her, struggling to breathe. My chest hurt so much I thought I would have a heart attack right there. "Get out of my house," I said. My voice sounded different, firmer than I felt. "Get out right now." Lisa picked up her purse from the sofa calmly, in no hurry. "Whatever you say. But think about it, Mom. When you get over this tantrum, you'll realize I did the right thing." She walked to the door but stopped before leaving. "Oh, and do not try anything stupid. The money was withdrawn legally from your account. I have all the paperwork in order. Vincent is a lawyer, remember? He knows how to do things right." She closed the door behind her, leaving me alone in the most terrible silence I had ever experienced. I collapsed onto the sofa, clutching the empty safe to my chest. I cried like I had not cried since Arthur's death. But these tears were different. They were not of pure sadness, but of outrage, of rage, of helplessness. My own daughter had stolen from me. There was no other word for it. She had stolen my dreams, my hard work, my future, and she had done it without remorse, convinced she had the right. I spent the whole night wide awake, staring at the ceiling of my bedroom. The memories bombarded me without mercy. I remembered when Lisa was little and got pneumonia. I worked double shifts for months to pay the hospital bills, because Arthur barely earned enough. I remembered the nights I stayed up sewing her graduation dress, because we did not have money to buy one. I remembered how I mortgaged this house to pay for her college when she only got a partial scholarship, but not a full one. Everything. I gave her everything. And now she repaid me by calling me a useless old woman, by stealing the only thing I had left. When dawn broke, my eyes were swollen and my throat was dry from crying. But I also had something else: clarity. I was not going to sit back and accept this injustice. Lisa had said she had legal papers, that everything was in order, but I never gave her permission to touch my money. I never signed anything. If she had forged my signature or used some legal trick, I was going to find out. I got up, washed my face, and got dressed in the gray dress I saved for important occasions. I only had a little coffee and toast for breakfast. I needed to keep my strength up. I grabbed my purse, my documents, and headed to the bank. It was Monday morning, and the streets were full of people rushing to work. I walked slowly, leaning on my cane, but with a determination I had not felt in years. I was not going to let them treat me like I was invisible. I arrived at the bank shortly after it opened. I asked to speak to the manager. The receptionist, a young woman with too much makeup, looked at me with annoyance. "Do you have an appointment, ma'am?" I explained that I needed to urgently review my account activity. She typed something into her computer listlessly. "Mr. Sullivan can see you in an hour." An hour. 60 more minutes of waiting, of uncertainty. But I nodded and sat down in the waiting area, clutching my purse tightly. I watched people come and go. Young employees in smart suits, clients on the phone talking about investments and loans. I felt small in there, an insignificant old woman in a world that no longer seemed to have a place for me. But then I remembered Arthur's words, something he told me shortly before he died. "Eleanor, never let anyone make you feel like you do not deserve to be happy. Age does not take away your right to dream." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and waited. Finally, the receptionist called my name. I took the elevator to the second floor, where the manager's office was. Mr. Sullivan was a man in his 50s, gray-haired, with small glasses that gave him a serious air. He greeted me with professional courtesy and offered me a seat. "How can I help you, Mrs. Miller?" I explained the whole situation, my voice trembling but clear. $50,000 withdrawn from my account without my authorization. My daughter, the car, everything. Mr. Sullivan frowned and began typing on his computer. The silence in that office was thick, broken only by the clicking of the keyboard. I clenched my hands in my lap, waiting, praying there was something, anything, I could do. After what felt like an eternity, Mr. Sullivan looked up. His expression was grave. "Mrs. Miller, there is indeed a withdrawal for $50,000 made 3 days ago." My heart pounded, but it says here it was done with a power of attorney form signed by you. "That's impossible," I said immediately, leaning forward. "I never signed any power of attorney. I never gave my daughter permission to touch my money." Mr. Sullivan turned his computer screen so I could see. There it was, a scanned document with my name, my signature, authorizing Lisa to conduct transactions on my account. I felt the air leave my lungs. The signature looked like mine, but there was something odd about it. The stroke was too perfect, too firm. My hand trembles a little when I write. It always has since my arthritis. That signature had no tremor at all. "That is not my signature," I said in a choked voice, pointing at the screen. "Look, I can sign right now so you can compare." Mr. Sullivan handed me a piece of paper and a pen. My hands were shaking so much from nerves that I could barely write my name, but I did it. I put the paper next to the screen. Even I could see the difference. My real signature was uneven, with that slight, characteristic tremor. The one on the document was fluid, confident, fake. Mr. Sullivan took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "This is very serious, Mrs. Miller. If this signature was forged, We are talking about fraud. And what do I do now? I asked, feeling the tears threaten to return. Can I get my money back? Mr. Sullivan sighed deeply. First, we need to verify the document's authenticity. I am going to launch an internal investigation. I need you to file a formal complaint here at the bank and also with the police. With that paperwork, we can begin the legal process to recover the funds. Legal process. Words that sounded so complicated, so distant. But I nodded with determination. I will do whatever it takes. That money is mine. It's my entire life savings. Mr. Sullivan prepared the forms while I tried to keep my composure. He asked me detailed questions. When did I notice the theft? Who had access to my documents? Had I noticed anything strange before? I answered everything as accurately as I could. When we finished, he gave me a copy of everything. Mrs. Miller, I want you to know the bank will take this very seriously. If there was negligence on our part in accepting this document without proper verification, we will investigate that as well. He gave me a card with his direct number. Anything you need, call me. And go to the police today. The faster you act, the better. I left the bank feeling dizzy. The mid-morning sun blinded me for a moment. I sat on a park bench across from the bank. I needed to process everything. Fraud. My daughter had committed fraud. Not only had she stolen from me, but she had forged documents. She had lied. She had planned all this with Vincent. The question was, when? When had they decided that my money belonged to them? How long had they been planning this? I felt betrayed in a way I never thought possible. I took out my phone and dialed Margaret's number. She had been my friend since we were young. Almost 40 years of friendship. She was also a lawyer, though she was retired. She answered on the third ring. Eleanor? What a surprise. You almost never call this early. Her cheerful voice faded when she heard my tone. Margaret, I need your help. I need you to tell me what to do because I feel like I'm losing my mind. I told her everything. Every word, every detail. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. When I finished, Margaret exploded. That damn girl. Sorry, Eleanor. I know she's your daughter, but how dare she? I could hear her genuine outrage, and it comforted me. At least someone understood the magnitude of what had happened. Listen to me, Margaret continued, her voice firm. You are going to the police station right now. Not tomorrow, not later, now. You are going to file a report for fraud and theft. Did you hear me? Theft, because that's what it is. I nodded, even though she could not see me. But she's my daughter, Margaret. If I report her, she could go to jail. And she deserves it, Margaret replied without flinching. Eleanor, I love you like a sister. You know that. But you have to stop protecting Lisa. She is not a child. She is a 45-year-old adult woman who made a conscious decision to steal from you. She stole your dreams, your hard work, your future. And she did it without remorse. She was right. Completely right. But it still hurt. It hurt so much I felt like I was being split in two. Can you come with me? I asked in a small voice. I do not want to go alone. Margaret did not hesitate for a second. I'll pick you up in 20 minutes. Do not move. While I waited, I called Lisa. I needed to give her one last chance, even though I knew it was useless. The phone rang and rang until it went to voicemail. I tried 3 more times. Nothing. She was ignoring me. I sent her a text. I was at the bank. I know you forged my signature. Give me the money back now, or I'm going to the police. I waited, staring at the screen, praying to see the 3 dots indicating she was typing. 5 minutes later, her reply came. I do not know what you're talking about. You're confused, Mom. You should rest. Fury washed over me with an intensity I had never felt before. Confused. She was calling me confused as if I were a senile old woman making things up, I wrote back. I have proof. The bank manager confirmed the signature is fake. Last chance. Lisa. This time the reply took longer. Threaten me all you want. You have nothing. Vincent reviewed everything legally. You're making a fool of yourself. And then, nothing. She had blocked me. My own daughter had blocked me after robbing me. Margaret arrived in her silver sedan, pulling up to the bench where I was sitting. She got out quickly and hugged me tight. "We're going to fix this," she whispered in my ear. "I promise you." I got in the car, and we drove to the police station. Along the way, Margaret was furious, cursing Lisa and Vincent. That man always gave me a bad feeling. From the first day I met him, I knew he was a user. "And your daughter? Forgive me, but she either let herself be manipulated or she's just as bad as he is." I did not defend her. I no longer had the strength to defend the indefensible. The police station was a gray, cold building that intimidated me instantly. I had never been in a police station in my life. I had always been a good, hard-working, honest woman, and now I was here to report my own daughter. Margaret took my arm, and we walked in together. At the front desk, a young officer helped us. "How can I help you, ladies?" Margaret spoke for me, because I could not. "My friend needs to file a report for fraud and document forgery." The officer looked at us more closely and asked us to wait. We sat in hard, uncomfortable plastic chairs. There were other people waiting. A man with a bruised face, a woman crying silently, a handcuffed teenager. I felt out of place, like I was in a nightmare I could not wake up from. After half an hour, they called us. We went into a small office where a middle-aged detective with her hair pulled back in a ponytail greeted us. She introduced herself as Detective Chen. "Tell me what happened," she said in a neutral voice, preparing her notebook. I repeated the whole story for the third time that day. Every time I told it, it hurt more, as if putting it into words made it more real, more irreversible. Detective Chen took notes without interrupting, nodding occasionally. When I finished, she looked up from her notebook. "Do you have the documents from the bank?" I handed her everything Mr. Sullivan had given me. She reviewed each paper carefully, pausing on the signature comparison. Her expression hardened. "This is clearly forgery. The difference is obvious even to the naked eye." "What happens now?" I asked, my voice breaking. Detective Chen leaned back in her chair. "I am going to open a formal investigation. I'll need you to sign the official complaint. I am also going to request a warrant for the records from the car dealership where the vehicle was purchased. If your daughter and son-in-law used that money for a major purchase, there's an electronic trail." She leaned forward, looking me directly in the eyes. "Mrs. Miller, I want you to understand something important. This is not just a family matter. This is a serious crime. Financial fraud, document forgery. Your daughter could face criminal charges." The words fell on me like stones. Criminal charges. My Lisa, the little girl whose hair I used to braid before school, facing criminal charges. But then I remembered her look of contempt, her cruel words, how she had called me a useless old woman. I remembered the 5 years of sacrifice she had stolen from me without remorse. I nodded slowly. "I understand. I want to move forward with this." The detective seemed satisfied with my answer. "Good. It's important that you remain firm in your decision, because your daughter will try to manipulate you. It always happens in family cases." I signed all the necessary documents. Margaret reviewed each one before I put my name down, making sure everything was correct. When we finished, it was already past noon. We left the station with a copy of the official complaint. "Now we just wait," Margaret said as we walked to her car. "The justice system can be slow, but it works." I was not so sure. I felt exhausted, empty, as if I had been squeezed dry of every last drop of energy. "Take me home," I asked her. "I need to be alone for a while." Margaret dropped me off at my front door with a promise to call me that night to check in. I went inside, and everything looked the same as always, but something fundamental had changed. This was no longer the house where I had raised my daughter with love. It was the place where I had been betrayed in the worst possible way. I poured myself a glass of water and sat in the kitchen, staring out the window without really seeing anything. The phone vibrated in my purse. I ignored it. It vibrated again, and again. Finally, I took it out. 5 messages from an unknown number. I opened them with trembling hands. They were from Vincent. "Eleanor, it's Vincent. Lisa told me you went to the bank. This is ridiculous. The money was used legally and with your authorization. You are causing unnecessary trouble." The next one was worse. "If you insist on this police nonsense, you will regret it. I am a lawyer. I know the system. You do not have a case." And the last one. "Besides, Think about your granddaughter. Do you want Mia to grow up knowing her grandmother put her mother in jail? Stop being selfish. My granddaughter, Mia. She was 8 years old, and the only pure thing left in this whole disaster. I hardly ever saw her because Lisa always made excuses not to bring her over. Now I understood why. She did not want us to have a close relationship. She did not want me to mean anything important to the child. It made it easier to steal from me. I wiped away the tears that had started falling again. I was not going to let Vincent manipulate me with the child. I blocked the number and left the phone on the table. 2 days of absolute silence passed. 2 days in which I barely ate, barely slept. I just waited. On the 3rd day, the doorbell rang in the mid-afternoon. I looked through the peephole before opening. It was a uniformed police officer. I opened the door, my heart racing. "Mrs. Eleanor Miller?" I nodded. "I am here to notify you that we have executed an order to impound the vehicle purchased with the funds in question. The car has been confiscated and is in police custody while the case is investigated." I could not believe what I was hearing. "Confiscated? Already?" The officer nodded. Detective Chen fast-tracked the process due to the clear evidence of fraud. "We have also summoned your daughter and son-in-law for questioning tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning." He handed me a paper with all the details and left. I stood in the doorway, holding that document, unable to fully process what it meant. The car had been confiscated. In less than 3 days since I discovered the theft, the justice system was already working. I felt a strange mix of relief and terror for what was to come. I did not have to wait long for the reaction. An hour later, my phone exploded with calls. Lisa, Vincent, unknown numbers. I let them all go to voicemail. Then the text started. Lisa was hysterical. "What did you do, Mom? The police took Vincent's car. We're going to be arrested. How could you do this to us?" I read each message without replying. Then came a different one that chilled my blood. "You are going to regret this. I will make sure you never see your granddaughter again. Ever." That threat broke me in a way not even the theft had managed. Mia, my only granddaughter. She was using her as a weapon. I called Margaret, crying. "Lisa says she will not let me see Mia anymore." Margaret sighed heavily. "Eleanor, Lisa is desperate. She just realized that what she did has real consequences. She's trying to scare you into dropping the charges. Do not fall for it." She was right, but it still hurt. It hurt to know my daughter was capable of hurting her own mother in so many different ways. I barely slept that night. I imagined what the questioning would be like. I wondered if Lisa would confess or keep lying. I wondered if Vincent would use his legal knowledge to get away with it. At 7 o'clock in the morning, Margaret showed up at my house unannounced. She brought coffee and pastries. "I thought you might need company today." She sat with me in the kitchen as the sun began to stream through the windows. "Whatever happens today, Eleanor, remember that you did the right thing. Your daughter crossed a line that cannot be ignored." At 10 o'clock in the morning, my phone rang. It was Detective Chen. "Mrs. Miller, I need you to come to the station. There have been important developments." Her tone was serious, but not alarming. Margaret drove me over immediately. My hands would not stop shaking the entire way. When we arrived, the detective had us come into her office right away. Her expression was hard to read. "We just finished questioning your daughter and son-in-law." She sat down and invited us to do the same. Things got interesting. "Vincent tried to deny everything at first," the detective continued. "He said you had given him the money voluntarily, that the power of attorney was legitimate. But when we showed him the handwriting analysis and explained that we had forensic experts who would confirm the forgery, he started to sweat." She paused, checking her notes. "Then your daughter broke down. She confessed everything. She admitted she forged your signature, that she planned the whole thing with Vincent because he had wanted that specific car for months. She said she thought you would never notice or that you would not do anything about it." The detective's words hit me like slaps. Lisa had confessed. She had admitted she stole from me, that she forged my signature, that it was all premeditated. It was not a mistake, not a misunderstanding. It was a calculated, planned, cold-blooded theft. "And now what?" I managed to ask. The detective closed her notebook. "Now comes the hard part. Your daughter and son-in-law are being processed for financial fraud and document forgery. It's a felony. They could face 3 to 5 years in prison, depending on how the prosecutor proceeds. 5 years in prison, the words echoed in my head. My daughter could spend 5 years in jail for what she did to me. Part of me felt a bitter satisfaction, a sense of justice. But another part, the part that was still a mother, felt a deep, agonizing pain. "And my money?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Can I get it back?" The detective nodded. "The car is already impounded and will be auctioned. However, since it's a used vehicle now, it's unlikely to fetch the full $50,000. You will recover a significant portion, but not all of it. Not all of it. It would never be all. Years of work, of sacrifice, of dreams, reduced to a significant portion." I felt dizzy. Margaret took my hand, squeezing it hard. "Is there anything else Eleanor needs to know?" my friend asked in a firm voice. Detective Chen hesitated for a moment before answering. "There is one other thing. When we confronted Vincent with the evidence, he tried to blame Lisa for everything. He said he knew nothing about the forgery, that she told him she had the money legally. Basically, he tried to save his own skin by throwing his wife under the bus." Margaret snorted with contempt. Typical coward. I could barely process the information. Vincent had betrayed Lisa the same way she had betrayed me. There was a cruel irony in that. Lisa became hysterical when she heard Vincent, the detective continued. She started screaming at him, accusing him of pressuring her to steal the money. It was a pretty nasty scene. We had to separate them. I imagined my daughter, desperate, watching as her husband abandoned her. I should feel pity, but I just felt a cold emptiness. "What happens now?" I asked, wiping away the tears that had started to roll down my cheeks without my noticing. "The case goes to the district attorney's office. They will decide whether to press full charges or offer some kind of plea deal. Since your daughter confessed, that might work in her favor for a reduced sentence." The detective looked at me directly. "But I need to ask you something important, Mrs. Miller. If your daughter pays back the money, if she shows real remorse, would you consider dropping the charges?" The question took my breath away. I looked at Margaret, searching for guidance, but she just shook her head gently. "That decision is yours alone, my friend. I thought about Lisa as a child, about all the times I had defended her, protected her, loved her unconditionally. But I also thought about her look of contempt when she called me a useless old woman, how she blocked me after robbing me, how she threatened to take my granddaughter away. I do not know," I answered honestly. "I need time to think." The detective nodded sympathetically. "That's understandable. Take all the time you need. In the meantime, the legal process moves forward." She handed us more papers, more documents I needed to sign. When we left the station, the midday sun blinded me. Everything seemed too bright, too normal for the chaos I was living through. Margaret took me to a small coffee shop near her house. I needed to process everything before going back home. We sat at a table by the window. She ordered 2 coffees and a slice of chocolate cake that I barely touched. "Eleanor," Margaret began after a long silence, "I need to tell you something, and you might not like it." I looked up at her, waiting. "Your daughter is not going to change. What she did was not a spur-of-the-moment mistake. It was calculated, planned, and worst of all, she showed no remorse until she got caught." She took a sip of her coffee before continuing. "I've seen many cases like this in my years as a lawyer. People who feel entitled to what is not theirs, especially when it comes to family. And you know what they all have in common? They never change unless they face real consequences." Her words were harsh, but honest. "Do you think I'm a bad mother for not dropping the charges?" I asked in a small voice. Margaret took my hands across the table. "I think you're a brave woman who is finally standing up for herself. Being a good mother does not mean letting your children walk all over you. It means teaching them that actions have consequences." I wiped away the tears that kept falling. "It's so hard, Margaret. She's my daughter. I love her, even after this." My friend nodded understandingly. "I know, and it's okay to love her. But love does not mean being a doormat." That afternoon, when Margaret dropped me off, I felt more alone than ever. The house was silent. That heavy silence that makes you hear your own thoughts. I sat in my favorite armchair, the same one where I used to rock Lisa to sleep as a baby. I closed my eyes and tried to remember when exactly it all went wrong. When did my sweet little girl turn into this woman capable of stealing from me without a second thought? Was it when she married Vincent? Or had there been signs I had ignored for years? The phone vibrated. Another message from an unknown number. I opened it with resignation. It was Vincent again, from another number. "Eleanor, we need to talk. This has gotten out of hand. We can make a deal. I'll pay back the money, but you have to drop the charges. Think about Lisa. Think about Mia. A mom in jail will destroy that little girl." I felt rage boiling inside me. Now he was thinking about Mia. Now he cared about my daughter. When they were stealing from me, neither of them thought about the consequences. I did not reply to the message. Instead, I blocked that number too. I was not going to let them manipulate me anymore. The hours passed, and night fell. I made a simple dinner that I barely touched. I sat in front of the television, not really watching what was on the screen. It was just background noise to fill the emptiness. Around 9 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell rang. My heart leaped. I looked through the peephole cautiously. It was Lisa. She was alone, without Vincent. She looked terrible, with swollen eyes and streaked makeup. For a moment, I hesitated. A part of me wanted to open the door, hug her, tell her everything would be okay. But another part, the part still bleeding from the betrayal, held me firm. "Mom, I know you're in there," Lisa said, her voice cracking. "Please, open the door. I need to talk to you." I did not move a muscle. "Mom, please." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I made a terrible mistake." Her voice broke into sobs. "The car is gone. Vincent left me. I lost my job." The words tumbled out between tears. "I have nothing left. Please, Mom, you're all I have." Every word was like a knife, but I did not open the door. "Mom, I need your help. I have nowhere to stay. Vincent took all his things and left me alone in the apartment, but I cannot pay the rent without my salary." Silence. She waited. I waited too, trapped between maternal instinct and the need for justice. "You lost your job?" I finally asked through the closed door. "How?" Lisa sobbed harder. "When I was called into the police station, I had to miss work. I told them it was a family emergency, but then my boss looked into it. He found news articles about the case on the police department's social media. He fired me for damaging the company's reputation." Social media. I had not thought of that. The case had become public. People knew my daughter had stolen from her own mother. "Mom, everything fell apart in one day. In a single day, I lost everything. My marriage, my job, my home. And all because I made one stupid mistake." I pressed my forehead against the door, closing my eyes. "It was not a mistake, Lisa," I said, my voice firm even though I was crying. "It was a choice. You planned to steal from me. You forged my signature. You called me a useless old woman. That was not a spur-of-the-moment mistake." "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I hate myself for it. Vincent convinced me it was the right thing to do, that you did not need the money, that it was ridiculous for you to want to travel at your age. I was weak. I was selfish. I was the worst daughter in the world." I heard her slide down the door until she was sitting on the ground. "But I'm still your daughter, Mom. I'm still your Lisa. Do you not love me anymore?" The question shattered me. "Of course I love you," I answered, my voice thick. "But loving you does not mean letting you hurt me without consequences." "Please, Mom," Lisa begged from the other side of the door. "Just let me in. We can talk. We can fix this. I'll pay back the money, I promise. I'll get another job. I'll pay back every cent, even if it takes me years." Her words sounded desperate, but I had heard empty promises before. "How are you going to pay it back if you do not have a job? How are you going to pay for your apartment?" The silence that followed was telling. She had not thought about that. She was just saying what she thought I wanted to hear. "Vincent took everything," she said finally. "Our savings. Everything. He said if he was going to jail because of me, he'd at least make sure he had money to start his life over." The bitterness in her voice was palpable. "He used me, Mom. He convinced me to steal from you, made me believe it was the right thing. and then he abandoned me when things got hard. I felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Lisa was learning the hard way what it felt like to be betrayed by someone you trust. "Now, you know how I felt," I said quietly. I heard a choked sob from the other side. "I know. God, Mom, I know. And I'm so sorry. If I could go back, I'd do everything differently. I never would have listened when you called to tell me about your trip. I never would have told Vincent about your money. I never would have been so cruel to you." She was quiet for a moment before continuing. "Remember when I was little and I broke your favorite vase, the one Dad gave you? I was terrified to tell you. But when I confessed, you hugged me and told me that things can be replaced, but honesty is priceless." The memory hit me hard. That green ceramic vase with hand-painted flowers. Arthur had given it to me on our first anniversary. Lisa was 5 when she broke it playing ball in the house. I had cried seeing it in pieces, but it was true. I had hugged her. She was a child. It was an accident. This was completely different. You were 5 years old, Lisa. Now you're 45. You cannot break things anymore and expect Mommy to fix it with a hug. "I know," she whispered, "but I need you to know that I love you. I've always loved you, even when I said those horrible things. I was being someone I'm not. Vincent changed me. He made me believe that money and status were more important than anything." She paused. "But now that I've lost it all, I realize the only thing that really matters is family. And I destroyed mine." Her words sounded sincere, but doubt gnawed at me. Was it real remorse, or just desperation, because she had lost everything? "Lisa, I need you to understand something," I said, leaning against the door. "I cannot just forget what happened. I cannot pretend you did not steal from me, that you did not humiliate me, that you did not forge my signature. That has legal consequences that are out of my control now." I heard her inhale sharply. "What does that mean? It means you're going to let them put me in jail?" Her voice rose, mixing fear with some of that old arrogance. "I'm your daughter. You're supposed to protect me. The way you protected me?" I shot back, firmer than I felt. "The way you protected me when Vincent kicked me out of your house? The way you protected me when you threatened to take Mia away from me? You did not think about protecting me then, Lisa. You only thought about yourself." The silence stretched between us, heavy and painful. "You're right," she said finally, her voice defeated. "You're completely right. I was a terrible daughter. But Mom, please. If I go to jail, Mia will grow up without a mother. Is that really what you want for your granddaughter?" There it was again, using Mia as a shield. "You should have thought about Mia before you stole from me," I replied, feeling the anger bubble up again. "You should have thought about her before you committed fraud." "I am not putting you in jail, Lisa. Your actions are." I heard movement on the other side, as if she were getting to her feet. "Fine," she said, her voice cold, so different from the sobs moments ago. "I see how it is. You'd rather have your revenge than your own daughter? You'd rather have your stupid trip to Japan than your family?" The transformation was so fast it left me breathless. One second she was begging for forgiveness, the next she was attacking. "It's not revenge, Lisa. It's justice. There's a difference," she snorted with contempt. "Justice. How noble you sound. But when I'm in jail and Mia asks why her grandmother destroyed her family, what will you tell her? That it was worth it for a few dollars?" Every word was poison, designed to make me feel guilty. And it was working, but not enough to make me give in. "I will tell her the truth," I answered, my voice trembling. "That her mother committed a crime and had to face the consequences. That in life you cannot steal and lie and have nothing happen." I heard footsteps moving away from the door. "You're a bitter, selfish old woman," Lisa screamed. "You never cared about anyone but yourself. Dad knew it. That's why he spent so much time away from home. He couldn't stand being with you." The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But they were the desperate lies of someone who had lost control. "Your father loved me," I said firmly. "And he would be ashamed of what you've become." I heard a scream of frustration, then running footsteps. I looked through the peephole and saw Lisa walking quickly down the street, stumbling slightly. When she was out of sight, I slid down the door and sat on the floor, just as she had been moments before. The tears finally came. uncontrollably. I cried for the daughter I had lost, for the relationship that would never be the same, for the wasted years of believing that unconditional love was enough. That night was the longest of my life. I could not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Lisa's face at 5 years old, laughing as we played in the park. Then the image would morph into the woman who had called me a useless old woman. The contrast was so brutal, it made my chest physically ache. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I got up and went to the kitchen. I made chamomile tea, the same kind I used to give Lisa when she had nightmares as a child. The irony was not lost on me. I sat by the window, watching the empty streets. A part of me expected to see Lisa come back, knock on the door, apologize for real. But she did not come. The hours passed slowly until the sky began to lighten with the first rays of dawn. My phone vibrated around 6 o'clock in the morning. It was a text from Detective Chen. "Mrs. Miller, I need to inform you that Lisa Miller was arrested early this morning. She attempted to withdraw money from ATMs using credit cards that did not belong to her. She is in custody." I read the message 3 times before the words truly sank in. Lisa had been arrested. She had tried to steal again. Desperation had driven her to commit another crime. I felt dizzy. I dialed Margaret's number, even though it was early. She answered with a sleepy voice. "Eleanor? What's wrong?" I told her about the message. I heard Margaret inhale sharply. My God, that girl is digging her own grave. She was right. Every decision Lisa made was making her situation worse. "What do I do?" I asked in a small voice. "Do I go see her? Do I help her with bail?" Margaret was quiet for a moment. "Do you want to help her?" The question was simple, but loaded with implications. I thought about it. Part of me, the maternal part that never dies, wanted to run and rescue her. But another part, the part that had been wounded and betrayed, knew that rescuing her now would only teach her that she could do whatever she wanted without real consequences. "I do not know," I admitted finally. "I need to think." I spent the whole day in a daze, unable to concentrate on anything. Margaret came to see me in the afternoon, bringing food she had cooked herself because she knew I would not be eating. We sat in the living room in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. "The detective called," Margaret said finally. She told me more details. Lisa tried to use Vincent's credit cards. Apparently, he left them behind when he left, and she thought she could use them before he canceled them. But Vincent had already reported the cards as stolen. Vincent had betrayed Lisa even in that, setting a trap for her. "She's in serious trouble now," Margaret continued. "It's not just the original fraud against you. Now there are additional charges of attempted credit card fraud. The judge is not going to be lenient." I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of it all crushing me. "This is my fault," I whispered. "If I had been a better mother, if I had taught her better values." Margaret cut me off sharply. "No, stop that right now. Lisa is an adult who made her own decisions. You did not force her to steal." The next day, I received a call from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, but something pushed me to. It was an older woman's voice, trembling. "Eleanor? This is Barbara, Vincent's mother." I froze. My daughter's mother-in-law, whom I had only seen a few times at awkward family gatherings. I'm calling to apologize for what my son did to you and to Lisa." Her voice broke. "I just found out about everything. Vincent lied to me, told me they bought the car with their savings. I didn't know they had stolen your money. Why are you calling me?" I asked cautiously. Barbara sighed deeply. "Because I need you to know the truth about my son. Vincent is a manipulator. He's been this way since he was young. His father and I tried to set him straight, but he just learned to hide his lies better." She paused. "When he married Lisa, I thought maybe she would change him. But now I see he just dragged her down to his level. I'm ashamed of what my son is." Her words were sincere, filled with a maternal pain I understood all too well. "Vincent emptied every bank account they shared," Barbara continued. "He moved in with his secretary. Yes, he's had a mistress for 2 years. Lisa never knew. The revelation hit me like a punch. My daughter had sacrificed her relationship with me, her integrity, her freedom, for a man who had been betraying her the whole time. Mrs. Miller, I know Lisa made a terrible mistake, But Vincent manipulated her. He saw the money you had and convinced Lisa they deserved it, that you did not need it. I did not know what to say. That does not justify what she did. I know, Barbara admitted. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I just want you to know the full truth, and to tell you how sorry I am. After I hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand, processing it all. Lisa had been manipulated, yes, but she was still responsible for her actions. No one forced her to forge my signature. No one forced her to call me a useless old woman. She had chosen to hurt me, no matter the reasons behind that choice. Margaret was right. Consequences were necessary. 2 days later, I received an official letter from the courthouse. The court date was set for 3 weeks from then. I would have to testify, to tell my story in front of a judge, in front of Lisa. The thought terrified me. Margaret helped me prepare. We went over my testimony again and again, anticipating the questions Lisa's defense attorney might ask. They're going to try to paint you as a cruel mother who abandoned her daughter, Margaret warned me. They'll say you're vindictive, that you care more about money than your family. You have to stay firm. We practiced for hours, until my voice stopped shaking when I recounted the facts. But inside, I still felt broken. The night before the trial, I barely slept. I got up several times, walking through the empty house, remembering happy moments that now seemed to belong to another life. The day of the trial dawned gray and rainy, as if the sky reflected my mood. Margaret picked me up early. I had put on my best dress, the dark gray one I wore for important occasions. My hands would not stop shaking as we drove to the courthouse. The building was imposing, with white columns and marble steps. Inside, the smell of old paper and wood polish made me feel even smaller than I already did. We sat on a hard wooden bench, waiting for the case to be called. Then I saw her. Lisa entered with her defense attorney, a young man in a black suit who looked more confident than the situation warranted. My daughter looked haggard, with deep dark circles under her eyes and dull hair. She wore a simple brown suit I had never seen before. Our eyes met for a second. In her eyes I saw fear, shame, and something that might have been a plea. But I looked away. I could not let my emotions weaken me now. I had to be strong. I had to do this. Case number 2847. The State versus Lisa Miller and Vincent Moore for financial fraud and document forgery, the bailiff announced. We all stood as the judge entered, a man in his 60s with silver hair and a stern expression. He sat, reviewed some papers, and then looked at all of us. This is a particularly painful case, he began. It involves a mother and her daughter, a family broken apart by decisions that should never have been made. We will proceed with the testimonies. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. They called Mr. Sullivan, the bank manager, first. He testified about the forged signature, showing the judge the comparisons between my real signature and the fake one. His testimony was clear and professional. Then they called Detective Chen, who recounted how the investigation unfolded, Lisa's confession, the subsequent attempt to use Vincent's credit cards. Every word was another nail in the coffin of my daughter's defense. Finally, they called me. Mrs. Eleanor Miller, please take the stand. I walked with trembling legs to the witness box. I swore to tell the truth. The prosecutor, a middle-aged man with a firm voice, began asking me questions. I told him everything: the 5 years of saving, the sacrifice, the dream of Japan, the promise to my late husband. I told him how I discovered the money was gone, how Lisa confessed without remorse, how she called me a useless old woman. My voice broke several times, but I continued. The judge listened intently, taking occasional notes. Lisa kept her eyes down, never looking at me. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He stood up with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Mrs. Miller, is it true that your daughter looked after you following your husband's death? The question caught me off guard. She came by a few times at the beginning, yes. The lawyer nodded. And it's true that you live alone, with no one to regularly care for you? I saw where he was going. I live alone because I choose to. I am perfectly capable of taking care of myself. The lawyer smiled. At 73 years old, with a bad knee, you really thought it was wise to travel alone to the other side of the world? Objection, the prosecutor said, standing up. Mrs. Miller's ability to travel is not on trial here. What is on trial is the theft of her savings. The judge nodded, sustained. Counsel, get to the point. The defender adjusted his tie. Mrs. Miller, isn't it true that your daughter was worried about your safety? That she took the money thinking she was protecting you from a potentially dangerous trip? The question was so absurd I almost laughed. If she was worried about my safety, she could have talked to me about it. Not steal from me and buy her husband a sports car. The lawyer changed tactics. Did you ever tell your daughter that you would leave her that money in your will? I frowned. No. That money was for my trip. The lawyer stepped a little closer. But eventually, when you pass away, that money would have been hers anyway, correct? The implication was clear. Lisa had only taken what would eventually be hers. As long as I am alive, that money is mine, I answered firmly, and I have the right to spend it as I choose. My daughter does not have the right to steal it just because she might inherit it someday. The lawyer tried a few more questions, trying to paint me as an inflexible mother who refused to help her daughter in need. But every attempt failed against the simple facts. Lisa had forged my signature. She had stolen $50,000. She had spent that money on a whim, and she had shown zero remorse until she was caught. Finally, I was allowed to step down. My legs barely held me as I returned to my seat next to Margaret. She took my hand and squeezed it hard. Then they called Lisa to the stand. My daughter walked slowly, as if every step took an enormous effort. She swore to tell the truth, though we both knew the truth was the last thing she wanted to share. The prosecutor began with direct questions. Miss Miller, is it true that you withdrew $50,000 from your mother's bank account without her permission? Lisa nodded slightly. Yes. Her voice was almost inaudible. Did you forge your mother's signature on a power of attorney form? Another nod. Yes. The prosecutor continued methodically, building the case piece by piece. Why did you do it? The prosecutor asked, looking directly at Lisa. My daughter finally looked up, tears rolling down her cheeks. Because Vincent convinced me it was the right thing to do. He said my mother was wasting that money, that I should use it for something practical. Her voice broke. But that's no excuse. I made the decision. I forged the signature. I stole from my own mother. The prosecutor nodded. Did you show any immediate remorse after the theft? Lisa shook her head slowly. No. I said horrible things to her. I called her old, told her she didn't need to travel. I was cruel. The prosecutor let the words hang in the tense air of the courtroom. Then he continued. And what about the subsequent attempts to use your husband's credit cards? Lisa visibly shrank. I was desperate. I had lost everything. My job, my marriage, my home. I had no money for food. I thought Vincent wouldn't notice if I just used the cards once. The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. So when you faced the consequences of one theft, your solution was to commit another theft. Lisa couldn't answer. She just wept silently as the prosecutor returned to his seat. The defense attorney tried to do damage control. Lisa, do you love your mother? She nodded desperately. More than anything in the world. The lawyer continued in a soft voice. Do you regret what you did? Lisa looked directly at me for the first time. I regretted every second of every day. I destroyed the most important relationship in my life for a stupid car. I would sell my soul to be able to go back in time and never have listened to Vincent. Her words sounded sincere, but I had learned that words were cheap. Actions were what counted. The defense attorney made his closing argument, painting Lisa as a woman manipulated by an abusive husband, someone who had made a mistake under extreme pressure. My client fully recognizes her guilt, he said in a solemn voice. But I ask for mercy. She is the mother of an 8-year-old girl. She is a professional with a clean work history until this incident. A prison sentence would destroy not only her life, but that of her innocent daughter. He looked at the judge with a pleading expression. I ask that you consider probation with restitution of the stolen money. Let's give her a chance to repair the damage she caused. The prosecutor stood for his closing argument. Your Honor, this was not a spur-of-the-moment mistake. It was a premeditated act of fraud. Miss Miller forged documents, stole $50,000, and then tried to justify her actions by humiliating her mother. When she was caught, She did not show remorse, she showed arrogance. And when she faced consequences, she committed another crime. He paused, letting his words resonate. The remorse we see today is not genuine. It is desperation because she was caught. Justice demands that there be real consequences. The judge called for a 30-minute recess to deliberate. Those 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Margaret and I went out into the hallway for some air. I could not stop shaking. "You did well," Margaret told me, rubbing my back. "You told the truth with dignity." But I did not feel dignified. I felt shattered, as if I were betraying my own daughter, even though I knew rationally that she had betrayed me first. I saw Lisa at the other end of the hall, crying in her lawyer's arms. Part of me wanted to run to her, to hold her, to tell her everything would be okay. But I could not. Not anymore. When we were called back in, the atmosphere in the courtroom was so tense you could cut it with a knife. The judge entered, and we all rose. He sat, adjusted his glasses, and looked directly at Lisa. "Miss Miller, I have reviewed all the evidence and heard all the testimony." His voice was firm, without emotion. "This is one of the saddest cases I have seen in my years on this bench. A daughter stealing from her mother, destroying a relationship that should be sacred." Lisa was sobbing openly now, her lawyer holding her arm. "I have considered the plea for mercy," the judge continued. "I have considered that you are a mother, that you have lost your job, that you were apparently influenced by your husband, but I must also consider the gravity of the crime. You not only stole $50,000, but you did so by forging legal documents. And when you were discovered, you attempted to commit fraud again." The judge paused, letting the silence stretch. "This court cannot allow such actions to go without appropriate consequences. Therefore, I sentence you to 3 years in prison." The sound that came from Lisa was heartbreaking. 3 years. My daughter would spend 3 years in prison. I covered my mouth with my hand, trying to hold back my own sob. The judge continued. "However, I am suspending that sentence under the following conditions: 5 years of probation, full restitution of the $50,000 with interest, 500 hours of community service, and mandatory weekly therapy sessions." I breathed. She was not going to prison immediately, but her life would be under constant scrutiny for 5 years. Furthermore, the judge added, looking sternly at Lisa, "If you violate any of these conditions, or if you commit any other crime during your probation, you will serve the full 3-year sentence with no possibility of appeal. Is that clear?" Lisa nodded through her sobs. "Yes, Your Honor." The judge banged his gavel. Case closed. The sound of the gavel echoed in the room like a final thunderclap. It was over. The legal part, at least. But I knew the emotional part would never truly be over. We left the courthouse into a light rain that had started while we were inside. Margaret opened her umbrella and covered me as we walked to her car. Behind us, I heard Lisa's voice. "Mom, wait, please." I stopped, though Margaret tried to keep me moving. I turned around slowly. Lisa was soaked, without an umbrella, her makeup streaked from the mix of tears and rain. She looked destroyed, but also free of the mask of arrogance she had worn for so long. "I do not expect you to forgive me," she said, her voice trembling. "I do not expect us to go back to what we were. But I need you to know something." She took a step closer, her hands shaking. "I am going to pay you back every cent. I do not know how. I do not know how long it will take me, but I will. I'll get 2 jobs if I have to. 3. Whatever it takes." Her eyes were red and swollen. "And I'm going to therapy, not because the judge ordered me to, but because I need to understand how I became someone capable of hurting you like this. I need to change, Mom. For real." I looked at her in silence, searching for signs of manipulation, of lies. But what I saw was genuine pain, and for the first time, true remorse. "I believe you," I said finally. "But words are not enough, Lisa. They will never be enough again. Only actions count now." She nodded vigorously. I know, and I'm ready to prove it, for as long as it takes." There was a long silence, broken only by the sound of the rain. "Can I hug you?" she asked in a small voice, like a frightened child. I hesitated. Every fiber of my being wanted to say no, to protect my wounded heart from more pain. but something in her expression, in her defeated posture, touched that part of me that would always be a mother, no matter what. I took a step forward and hugged her. She collapsed in my arms, sobbing against my shoulder like she used to when she was little and had nightmares. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she repeated over and over. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." I was crying too, stroking her wet hair. "I know, my girl. I know." But even as I held her, I knew that something between us was permanently broken. We could heal, but the scar would always be there. After a moment, we separated. Lisa wiped her face with trembling hands. "Can I call you? From time to time? Not to ask for anything, just so you know I'm keeping my word." I looked into her eyes, searching for the truth. "You can call? But, Lisa, if you ever lie to me again, if you ever manipulate me again, if you ever hurt me in any way, we are done. For good. Do you understand?" She nodded solemnly. "I understand. It will not happen again. I swear it on Mia's life." The name of my granddaughter reminded me of something important. "How is she? Does she know about any of this?" Lisa shook her head. "I told her Mommy was busy with work. She's too little to understand this. But when she's older, I'll tell her the truth. I'll tell her that her mother made a terrible mistake and had to face the consequences." She paused. "Could you see her sometime? She misses you. She's always asking about her grandma Eleanor." My heart squeezed. "I would love to see her. When you're ready, when things calm down." "Mia is not to blame for any of this." Lisa smiled for the first time. A small, sad smile. "Thank you, Mom, for everything. Even for not dropping the charges. I know it sounds strange, but I needed this. I needed to face what I did." We said goodbye with another brief hug. Then Margaret and I got in her car and drove away. I looked in the side mirror and saw Lisa standing in the rain, watching me leave. She looked so small, so lost. But there was something different in her posture, too. Maybe it was responsibility. Maybe it was the first step toward redemption. Only time would tell. Margaret drove in silence for a while before speaking. "How do you feel?" I thought about the question. "Broken," I admitted, but also relieved. Justice was served. That has to mean something. The following months were strange and difficult. Lisa kept her word. She got a job as a cashier at a supermarket, a humble job very different from her old executive position. She called me every week, just to report her progress. "I paid another $500 this week, Mom," she would say, her voice tired but determined. "I know it's not much, but it's what I can do." I would listen, offer words of encouragement when appropriate, but I kept my emotional distance. Trust is not rebuilt with phone calls and partial payments. The bank finally auctioned off Vincent's sports car. It sold for $32,000, much less than the original $50,000. That money was deposited into my account. With the payments Lisa made faithfully every week, the total slowly began to grow. Mr. Sullivan, the bank manager, called me personally to apologize for not catching the forgery sooner. "We've implemented new security protocols," he explained. "This will not happen again." I thanked him, though I knew no protocol could protect against betrayal from your own family. Vincent, for his part, faced his own consequences. His law firm fired him when the scandal became public. It turned out his mistress was a colleague at the same firm, and both were fired for violating professional conduct policies. I saw him once on the street, months after the trial. He looked gaunt, wearing a wrinkled suit that had seen better days. Our eyes met for a second. He quickly looked away, quickening his pace. A coward to the end. Margaret became my anchor during those months. She came to visit regularly, took me for walks, forced me out of the house when all I wanted to do was hide. "Life goes on," she would tell me. "You cannot let this consume you." She was right, but it was hard. Every corner of my house reminded me of Lisa as a child. The mark on the wall where I measured her height every year, the window where we used to sit and watch the rain, the happy memories had been tainted with bitterness. 6 months after the trial, Lisa asked to see me in person. I agreed cautiously. We met at a small, neutral coffee shop, a place with no shared memories. She arrived on time. She looked different. Thinner, with shorter hair, without the elaborate makeup she used to wear. There was a simplicity to her I had never seen before. "Hi, Mom," she said softly, sitting across from me. "Thanks for coming." I nodded, waiting to see what she wanted. "I'm in therapy," she said directly. 6 months of sessions. I'm facing things about myself I never wanted to see. I looked at her, searching for lies, but I only saw honesty. "How is Mia?" Lisa's face lit up. "She's good. She asks about you constantly." She took out her phone and showed me pictures. Mia had grown so much in those months. "It's her birthday this Saturday," Lisa said, her voice careful. "It would mean the world to her if you came." I looked at her, searching for manipulation, but I only saw genuine hope. "I'll come," I said finally, "but I'm coming for Mia." That Saturday, I arrived at the small apartment where Lisa lived now. It was a modest place in a working-class neighborhood. I rang the bell with nervous hands. The door opened, and there was Mia, taller and more beautiful than I remembered. "Grandma Eleanor!" she shouted, throwing herself into my arms. I hugged her tight, breathing in the smell of kids' shampoo and sweetness. All the walls I had built around my heart crumbled in that moment. "I missed you so much, my love," I whispered into her hair. The small party was simple but full of love. Just the three of us, a homemade chocolate cake that Lisa had baked, and a few modest gifts. Mia beamed with happiness. I watched Lisa watching us with a mixture of joy and sadness. I knew she was seeing what she had almost lost. When Mia was busy playing, Lisa approached me in the kitchen. "Thank you for coming," she said in a low voice. "It means more than you can imagine." I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the chapped hands from manual labor. I saw a woman who was paying for her mistakes. "You're doing the right thing," I said finally. "Keep going." More months passed. My bank account slowly neared the original $50,000. Lisa never missed a payment, never missed a weekly call. Slowly I began to trust again. It was not the same blind trust as before. It was something new, more cautious, but also more real. I started seeing Mia regularly, every 2 weeks. The afternoons with my granddaughter became my new joy, something pure, in the midst of all the pain. In March, 1 year after the theft, Lisa made her final payment, $50,000, plus interest. She called me, crying. "I did it, Mom. I finished paying you." Her voice trembled with emotion. "I know the money doesn't fix what I broke, but it's a start." That night, I sat alone in my living room, looking at the bank statement. All the money was back. But more than the money, what had returned was a piece of my faith that people could change, that redemption was possible. I made a decision that night. It was time. I opened my computer and started searching for flights to Japan. The cherry blossom season was just weeks away. I found the perfect flight, arriving in Tokyo just as the flowers would be at their peak. My hands shook as I entered my card information. 74 years old. Some would say I was too old. But I knew the truth. It is never too late to chase your dreams. I called Lisa to tell her. She cried with happiness. "Mom, I'm so proud of you." Dad would be proud too. She offered to help me plan the itinerary. I accepted her help, not because I needed it, but because it was her way of participating in something she had almost destroyed. It was her way of bringing things full circle. The day before my flight, Lisa and Mia came to say goodbye. My granddaughter was excited. "Grandma is going to Japan like an adventurer," she said, jumping up and down. Lisa hugged me for a long time. "Enjoy every moment," she whispered. "You deserve it more than anyone in the world." That night, I held Arthur's picture. "I'm going, my love," I told his smiling image. "I'm going to keep our promise." I felt a deep peace. The next day, Margaret drove me to the airport. "Go and conquer the world, Eleanor," she told me with tears in her eyes. The plane took off, carrying me away from all the pain. But it was also carrying me towards something new: freedom, adventure, fulfillment. I thought about everything that had happened. It had been the hardest year of my life, but it had also taught me something invaluable: that it is never too late to stand up for yourself, to demand respect, and to chase your dreams. When I landed in Tokyo, the morning sun bathed the city in golden light. I took the train to Kyoto, to the famous park where the cherry trees were blooming in all their glory. And there they were, thousands of trees, covered in pale pink blossoms, petals falling like soft snow. It was more beautiful than I had ever imagined. I walked slowly under the trees, my cane in one hand and my camera in the other, capturing every moment. Tears rolled down my cheeks. "I made it, Arthur," I whispered to the wind. "I'm here." I sat on a bench under a particularly beautiful cherry tree and just existed in that perfect moment. An elderly Japanese woman sat down next to me, smiling kindly. We did not share a language, but we shared that moment of beauty. She pointed to the flowers, then to her heart, and nodded. I did the same. I spent 2 weeks in Japan, visiting ancient temples, Zen gardens, bustling markets. Every day was a gift. I sent pictures to Lisa and Mia. My daughter replied with genuine enthusiasm, living the trip with me. I returned home transformed. I had not only fulfilled my dream, but I had reclaimed my life, my worth, my right to exist fully, no matter my age. Lisa picked me up at the airport with Mia. My granddaughter ran to me with a sign. I hugged them both, feeling something I thought I had lost forever. Family. Different. Broken in some places, mended in others, but family nonetheless. That night, I placed the picture I had taken under the cherry blossoms next to Arthur's. I look happy. I look free. A woman who stood up for herself, who fought for justice, who never stopped dreaming. Because it is never too late to live the life you deserve. I opened the safe and felt the floor drop out from under me. Empty. Completely empty. My hands trembled as I sifted through the inside again.